Hey everyone, welcome to my channel and the April 2023 edition of Archaeology News, where I, Rachel, an archaeologist, cover all the latest interesting things going on in the world of archaeology. This show presents stories from all over the world, including discoveries, current events, and entertainment. All the links to further details on the stories mentioned today will be in the description below if you would like more info. Before we begin, please help support my channel by subscribing, and if you like the video, please hit the like button to help me out with the algorithm. Okay, let's dig in. We have 8 stories today in our top discoveries segment. They are presented in chronological order, going from earliest to most recent, starting with the Paleolithic clothes-making techniques and ending with the newly discovered markings on the Stone of Destiny. For our first story this month, we head to Spain, where analysis of an animal bone from Canyars, an early Upper Paleolithic coastal site in Catalonia, has revealed that it was likely used as a punchboard to poke holes in leather hides. The bone, which is presumably from the hip of a horse or an aurochs or an other large mammal, is indented with 28 aligned puncture marks. An international team of researchers studied the marks and experimented with piercing leather with stone and bone tools. The results of their experiments suggest that before the invention of the needle, early Homo sapiens would have laid leather pieces on the flat bone to poke holes in hides using a pointed tool like a bone awl. This would have then allowed them to stitch the hides together into clothing. This technique is an important discovery and addition to our knowledge of how clothes making developed. It's also notable that this is a technique that is still used by modern-day traditional societies and cobblers. Next, we're going to Egypt, where at least 2,000 mummified ram heads dating from the Ptolemaic period and a palatial Old Kingdom structure have been uncovered at the temple of Ramesses II in the ancient city of Abydos. In addition to the ram heads, the mummified remains of ewes, dogs, wild goats, cows, gazelles, and mongooses were also recovered, and all these remains are thought to be votive offerings, indicating continuing reverence for Ramses II at the site about 1,000 years after his death. Alongside the animal remains, the team also uncovered a large palatial structure dating to the 6th dynasty, with 5-meter thick walls in addition to several statues, papyri, ancient tree remains, leather garments, and shoes. The discovery of this structure will provide new information on the use of Abydos during the Old Kingdom 1,000 years before the temple to Ramesses was constructed. Another discovery about ancient Egypt has been made by scientists at the British Museum, who have used innovative imaging techniques to peer inside 6 2,500-year-old animal coffins without opening or damaging them. The team used neutron tomography to see through the metal boxes, which involves sending beams of neutrons through an object to create a 2D or 3D image. Based on how the neutrons are scattered or absorbed, scientists can create an image of the organic matter inside. The technique is an incredibly useful tool for studying fragile, delicate, and otherwise difficult to open objects. The animal coffins in this study were already in the museum collection. 2 came from the ancient city of Tel El Yehudiya, 3 from Naucratis, and 2 have unknown origins. All of the coffins, also known as votive boxes, were made of copper alloy and ranged from 2 to 12 inches in length. They were topped with loops as well as eel, cobra, and lizard figures that led researchers to believe they might find animal remains inside. First, the team tried to use X-rays, but this failed since the boxes were made of metal. The neutron tomography images revealed bones, bone fragments, and an intact skull that likely belonged to lizards. It is thought that they were mummified as a part of religious practices and beliefs, as animals were often believed to be incarnations of the gods or used as offerings. Lizards were particularly associated with ancient Egyptian solar and creator gods, such as Atum and Amun-Ra. Lead was also found inside some of the boxes, which was likely poured in while it was still molten. It has been suggested that the ancient Egyptians believed the metal had magical properties, or perhaps more practically, would have made the figurine-adorned boxes less top-heavy. It might have also been used to make repairs or reinforce weak areas in the coffin. This discovery is important as it demonstrates the power and potential of neutron tomography for archaeological purposes, allowing us greater insights into archaeological objects while still protecting their contents from undue or unnecessary damage. Next, we head to Asia, where genetic testing has led to an interesting discovery that princesses helped build the vast multi-ethnic alliances central to the centuries-long success of the Zhongnu people, who were mounted warriors from what is now known as Mongolia, who ruled from the edge of China to the grasslands of modern-day Kazakhstan and launched relentless attacks on their neighbors, prompting the construction of the Great Wall of China. A nomadic culture, the Zhongnu had no written records and left little physical evidence of their daily life. But new research has now combined genetics and archaeology to reveal their unusual power structure. In 2007, archaeologists excavated two Zhongnu cemeteries in the Altai Mountains. One contained the opulent tombs of aristocrats, whereas the other was a less elaborate graveyard for local elite. Genetic testing has showed that the skeletons buried in the largest, deepest tombs with the richest grave goods, such as gold discs and bronze chariot pieces, were female. Their graves held sacrificed horses, sheep, and cattle, and their deep underground tombs would have been costly and time-consuming to construct. The women buried in these palatial graves on the empire's frontier were also closely related to people from the core of the Zhongnu Empire, whose DNA was analyzed in earlier research. This evidence suggests that the Zhongnu relied on high-ranking women to knit their far-flung realm together by sending their women relatives to seal alliances with local leaders. Artifacts from these large tombs also suggest that these princesses weren't just sent as breeding stock. They were buried with horse gear such as saddles, bridles, and bronze chariot pieces, items associated with masculinity and power. In one case, new DNA analysis revealed that a skeleton that had previously been thought to be a male based on its prestigious burial goods was in fact biologically female. The grave goods also reflect the Zhongnu's geographic reach and control of the Silk Road. Artifacts included an Egyptian glazed ceramic bead and a Chinese lacquer cup. In a direct contrast, the men were buried in simpler graves surrounding the women's opulent tombs. While the women all shared a similar genetic background, the men were genetically diverse, with 2/3 of Eurasian genetics represented in a single site. This diversity suggests that the Zhongnu were deliberately mixing their population to cement control across wide stretches of the steppe. This is an important discovery, not only as an insight into Zhongnu culture, but also into their tactics for building an empire. Going farther east, in Japan, an almost perfectly preserved 1800-year-old cedar mask has been unearthed ahead of railway construction east of Osaka. At 30 centimeters long, 2 centimeters thick, and 18 centimeters wide, the mask was found in flood sediments some 9 feet deep, along with 2 other wooden objects, a water bucket and a hoe-shaped implement that was charred by fire. Archaeologists think that all these artifacts were used in agricultural festivals dating to the Yamato kingship, a period where an alliance of noble families, ruled by a leader known as Okimi, held sway over much of Japan from the 3rd to 7th centuries CE. It's also likely that the mask was probably displayed at these festivals to represent a god and/or the authority of the Okimi because it is too heavy to wear. This is the 3rd mask of this era to be found in Japan. Heading now to Mexico, archaeologists working at Chichen Itza have uncovered an intricately carved stone they believe was used as a scoreboard for pelota, a Mayan team ball game played with a heavy ball made from rubber. The game is thought to be around 3,000 years old and was played across all of Mesoamerica. The carved circular stone is thought to be around 1,200 years old and weighs about 40 kilos. At its center are 2 players in elaborate headgear, surrounded by hieroglyphic writing which is currently being deciphered. It comes from an architectonic compound known as Casa Colorada, which translates to Red House in English. Casa Colorada is the best preserved of the buildings surrounding the main plaza in Chichen Itza. The stone was found face down, half a meter underground, and is thought to have fallen there from an archway it would have adorned at the entrance to the compound. Casa Colorada is the best preserved of the buildings surrounding the main plaza in Chichen Itza. The stone was found face down, half a meter underground, and is thought to have fallen there from an archway it would have adorned at the entrance to the compound. This is the first time in 11 years that hieroglyphic writing has been found at this site. It is even rarer to find such a complete text. Next, we go to the outskirts of Rome and the site of the sumptuous Villa of the Quintilli from the 2nd century CE, which had its own theater, an arena for chariot races, and a bath complex with walls and floors lined in marble. Archaeologists have recently published their discovery here of the remains of an elaborate winery at the site, which is unparalleled in the Roman world for its lavishness. The facility included a series of luxurious dining rooms with a view onto fountains gushing with wine. There were also marble-lined treading areas where enslaved workers would stamp down the newly harvested fruit, while the emperor perhaps looked on as he feasted with his retinue. The discovery came by accident as archaeologists from the Italian Ministry of Culture were trying to find one of the starting posts for the villa's chariot arena. The later winery, it turns out, had been built over one of these starting gates. Originally built by the wealthy Quintilli brothers, they were killed by Emperor Commodus in 182/3 CE. After that, the imperial rulers took personal ownership of the complex, expanding and modifying it over the centuries. The name Gordian is stamped into a vast wine collection vat, and the archaeologists think that this means that the Emperor Gordian III likely either built the winery or renovated it. Covered dining rooms with wide open entrances were set around three sides of an open courtyard area where the wine was produced. The whole facility seems to have been designed with both the practical matter of wine production and the sheer theater of the entire process in mind, such as using red marble for the grape treading areas instead of traditional waterproof concrete. This is only the second Roman luxury winemaking facility to be found, as the other is the Villa Magna 30 miles to the southeast. For our last discovery today, we go to Scotland. When King Charles III is crowned in London on the 6th of May, the coronation ceremony will involve the Stone of Destiny, also known as the Stone of Scone, a Scottish carved seat that's at least 800 years old. Scientists working for Historic Environment Scotland have recently announced that they have discovered never-before documented symbols and other anomalies on the stone during laser scanning of the object. These anomalies, including a copper alloy stain and the remains of gypsum plaster, suggests that the historical block has unknown aspects of its history that haven't been recorded in documentation. Among the finds were markings that look like Roman numerals. They include 3 X-shaped marks followed by a marking that looks like a V. The copper alloy stain on the stone was found using X-ray fluorescence analysis, and it suggested that a copper or brass object was placed on the stone for a period of time at some point in its history to have left the stain behind. The analysis also revealed the presence of the gypsum plaster, which suggests that at some point a plaster cast of the artifact might have been made, but not documented. The recent scans and tests will make it easier for scholars to study the stone since it is rarely moved and it's not easy for scholars and the public to look at it in its entirety, close up, or for any extended period of time. The laser scan led to the creation of a virtual 3D image of the stone that is now available online for everyone to see. I've included the link to this image in the description below if you're interested. Okay, that's it for our top discoveries today. Now we're going to move on to current news and events. In the UK, 2 metal detectorists have been found guilty of hatching an illegal plot to sell Anglo-Saxon coins of immense historical significance. They were convicted of conspiring to sell criminal property worth £766,000, namely 9th century coins believed to have been buried by a Viking, which have never been declared as treasure and had not been handed to the crown, as is the law in England. The defendants were also convicted of separate charges of possessing criminal property, which was thought to be part of a larger undeclared find known as the Herefordshire Hoard. One of the detectorists was arrested with 3 coins at a Durham hotel in May 2019 in a police sting operation. He thought he was meeting a metal expert employed by a broker working for a wealthy US-based buyer, but was in fact speaking to an undercover detective. The other defendant was arrested in his home and a further 41 coins were seized. These 44 coins in total originated from the Herefordshire Hoard, which was discovered in 2015 and is worth millions of pounds. 4 people have already been convicted for their roles in concealing of this find. The undercover police operation was set up after one of the defendants tried to sell coins to a real American collector, who then contacted UK-based experts about the apparent availability of extremely rare and valuable examples, and the authorities were then alerted. It's believed that the coins were made between 874 and 879 CE and included 2 extremely rare examples of 2-headed coins showing Alfred of Wessex and Ceolwulf. Next, and also in the UK, the Welsh government has acquired the ruins of a medieval court used by the last native Prince of Wales before the 13th century English conquest of the country. The historic site of Llys, Rhosyr, will be conserved and presented for public view. The site was an important administrative center for Prince Llewellyn ap Griffith, also known as Llewellyn the Last. It is the only site that has been excavated and demonstrated to be a Llys, a court of the princes of Gwynedd. These courts were non-military, secular centers that the princes would visit to collect taxes, witness land transactions, and administer justice. It was originally excavated in the 1990s, during which time evidence of a large hall and stables was found. Archaeologists also recovered artifacts including pottery and silver objects, indicating use by people of a high social status. The government now plans to make sure its story is known and perhaps carry out further archaeological work to find out more about life at the Welsh royal courts before the English invasion. In our last current news story, on April 4th, the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago announced that it will be renamed the Institute for the Study of Ancient Cultures, West Asia, and North Africa, ISAC for short, effective immediately. The change is the result of the Institute's work in recent years to better reflect the geographic focus of its research and scholarship. The previous name led to confusion, often contributing to the perception that their work was focused on East Asia rather than West Asia and North Africa. Alongside their new name, ISAC also has a new logo featuring floral motifs found throughout the ISAC building, both in its architectural design elements and their collections. Okay, we're going to close our program today talking about archaeology in entertainment/pop culture. Author Lynn Olson has released her book, Empress of the Nile, which tells the story of French female Egyptologist Christine de Roche-Noble-Court, often described as a female Indiana Jones. She was the first woman to be a fellow of the French Institute of Oriental Archaeology and was also the first woman to lead an archaeological dig in 1938. She excavated at Edfu, Deir el-Medina, Medamud, and Karnak North from 1938 to 1940. In 1940, during World War II, she returned to Paris and joined the resistance, hiding the Louvre's Egyptian treasures in free areas of France. In the 1960s, she was a leading figure in the campaign for the preservation of ancient Nubian temples, including Abu Simbel, from flooding caused by the new Aswan High Dam. I don't know about you, but I am definitely going to be adding this book to my to-read list. In my previous edition of Archaeology News for March, I mentioned the Netflix documentary series African Queens, produced by Jada Pinkett Smith and whose first season covered Queen Nzinga. Their second season was released in April and has caused an uproar for its portrayal of Queen Cleopatra VII of Egypt as a black woman. Egyptian antiquities authorities, including Zahi Hawass, have come out and spoken against the documentary, claiming that it is false. And an Egyptian lawyer has even gone so far as to attempt to sue Netflix for erasing Egyptian identity. Personally, since we don't have definitive, irrefutable evidence on Cleopatra's race, I don't really think that we should be making statements about it on either side of the argument. This is especially true if you are making a documentary that uses historical reenactment as this one does. There was a similar uproar a few years ago when Gal Gadot was cast as Cleopatra in a film project that has yet to be released, or I think even filmed. At that time, I made a video on my channel about Cleopatra and how she is incorrectly portrayed in film and TV. If you're interested in learning more, I've linked it here and in the description below. All right, everyone, that's everything for the April edition of Archaeology News. I hope that you've enjoyed my show, and if you have any stories that you think should be featured on next month's edition, feel free to send them to me via DM on Instagram. If you liked this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up to help me out with the algorithm, and if you want to see more from me and continue to see more from me, don't forget to subscribe and help support the channel that way as well. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.